concentration now in school. We have some that are law school, some that are undergraduates, and everywhere in between. And today we're going to look at how student veterans are perceived here on campus. The timing of this event coincides with the 10th anniversary of the Iraq War, and we hope that this dialogue will help bridge any gaps that might be between students who are veterans as well as those who are civilians. And our moderator for this dialogue is Dr. Jim Brown, and he's currently an associate professor of science and a former dean of science, engineering, health sciences, and human performance at Ocean County College. He teaches science courses for the American Military University. He is a pioneer in creating online courses and has developed over 45 online courses in science, health sciences, and public health. He was one of the first professors nationally to create a totally online microbiology course. He received his BA, MS, and PhD, all from Rutgers. He is a former Assistant Commissioner of Health for the New Jersey Department of Health and oversaw the Division of Public Health and Environmental Laboratories, and as well as being the former president of the New Jersey Public Health Environmental Association. And he served as on the governing council of the American Public Health Association. He was a director of microbiology for Roche and vice president of Cellus Laboratory Group. In academia, he was a former assistant dean and assistant professor at Jersey City University, and he developed their first online course. He was an assistant professor of microbiology in the New York College of Osteopathic Medicine. He's won numerous awards for developing and teaching online courses. Dr. Brown has been honored by both houses of the U.S. Congress as well as both houses of the New Jersey Legislature. Last fall, he presented best practices teaching science online to military members and veterans at the 18th Annual Sloan International Conference on Online Learning in Orlando. Please help me welcome Jim Brown.
Now, I love Rutgers, and I spent such a huge amount of time at Rutgers. Rutgers College in '71, and I finally got my PhD in 1986. But it was really cool. My father worked for Rutgers, so I got to go there free of charge. It was really one of the neatest benefits you could have there. And my son, Billy, he's my oldest. I've got 3 adopted, 3 biological, so he's the oldest biological. He just graduated Rutgers in December, so he's going to walk in May with his outfit on. So anyhow, I've got a special love for Rutgers. And also, I mean, you heard a lot about online courses and all the rest. I was not in the military myself, but I was going to Rutgers. I was class of '75, which means I started in '71. It was just as the Vietnam War was just starting to wind down. And I'll tell you, it was horrible the way, oh, I'm sorry, that's me. That was my other son. But at that time, now most of you guys were still in your cribs then, but let me tell you, the attitude at the end of the Vietnam War was terrible. They would actually spit at returning veterans. And it was hard, the way they would call them baby killers and that sort of thing. So what I like is I have seen this change, and it's a dramatic change, where when the veterans came home from Iraq, and you probably know much better than I because you were the ones coming home, I saw them being treated with such tremendous respect, and people would come up and thank them for what they did for our country. And because, well, in 9/11, my sister-in-law's brother was the former Marine, and he was the co-pilot of Flight 175, the second one to hit the World Trade Center. So, I mean, it's a different world now. And I have any of the students I've had in my class who are veterans, whether online or face-to-face, I always thank them for what they've done to keep this a free country. I mean, this place did not happen by accident, and a lot of lives. And so I think it's wonderful we're having this conference today, basically talking about, okay, veterans going back to school. You've seen some horrific things, and now you're coming back. And this week it marks 10 years since the Allies invaded Iraq. It began with a mission to find weapons of mass destruction destruction, but it became a decade-long war and cost hundreds of billions of dollars. And also, what it has done to the veterans who were there. It's just, all wars are very tough that way. And the big question is, what does it mean for the veterans returning home, not only then, because many of them are in school now, but the ones that are still over there in Afghanistan coming back. According to the Associated Press, 4,500 Americans and more than 100,000 Iraqis died since Saddam Hussein's ouster. And post-traumatic stress disorder is the most common symptom of war, even more common than physical wounds. It will cost the VA an estimated $60 million this year just to treat it. And veterans make up 7% of the American population, but they make up 20% of the suicides. So it's kind of tough coming back, all the things you've seen and all the rest. So this panel is great because we've got civilians on the panel and also veterans. And we want to hear from them today what we can do to make things better. I was a dean at a community college, so I've seen it. I saw Rutgers for years, and now at a community college, many of our students, we get them first, and then we pass them on to Rutgers. And you see the problems that are there, and problems we never dreamed of, that we had to fix in order to make it better and friendly. So the first thing I'd like everybody to do on the panel, introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about your life, how you, if you're a veteran, where you were, when you started your education. Did you start it actually while you're deployed? Or did you started it after you came back? And also now the civilians on it, if you could talk about things you've seen with veterans in the classroom. Give us your perspective on that. So anyhow, this gentleman right here, I believe, is a Marine. And if you would start us off, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I think I'm most of you in this room, except for that guy. I'm Mark, so I'm talking to you because I don't know you. But everybody else seems to look familiar. So I'm Mark Pollard. I'm a graduate student here. This is my 4th year here at Rutgers North as a graduate student, so hopefully I'll be graduating soon. Prior to that, I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years. I was a military policeman. Everybody loves military policemen. And so, yeah, I was stationed in Japan for a couple of years. I deployed to Iraq for about a year. I was also in California for some time, stationed in Camp Pendleton. Prior to my Marine Corps career, I was at Rutgers, New Brunswick, doing my undergraduate studies. So I don't really know much else aside from Rutgers and the Marine Corps. So I'm looking forward to getting out and doing some other things with my life. And I'm happy to be here. And this event today is a conversation. So please, everybody in the audience, feel free to talk. And it's very informal. Just because you're not as awesome as the panelists are, your voice is still appreciated. So keep that in mind, especially you civilians out there.
Well, I got one for you. When you were deployed, were you able to take any classes? Or when you were stationed in other places around the world?
Yeah, when I was stationed, I definitely was able to. I didn't take advantage of that opportunity, but, sure, I was able to. Deployed, maybe, but most likely not. There just wasn't enough time or resources. So, yeah.
Now, when you were stationed, what school did you go to at that time?
I didn't attend any online.
Okay. Okay, who's our next?
Hi, my name is Nathaniel Love. This is, I would say, also I'm an undergraduate, criminal justice major. It's been my 3rd year here. I had some college prior to the Marines, and just really wanted to be done with school. I've been back to school, and I looked at it, and I was kind of kicking myself the first time because I wish that I had accomplished that first prior to the Marines, but now I'm kind of happy that it's coming forward and I'll see it through. And I was in Iraq in 2007 to 2008. 2009, I was in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, from that timeline, was the shift was like going the opposite way, and I would have to say that it was tremendous differences. So, like in Iraq, it was a lot easier. Afghanistan was more Spartan and more doing our job as to what we were supposed to do as Marines. And if you're going to ask about like taking college courses or anything like that, I spent 4 years in the infantry. So when we were not deployed or when we were back, it would totally depend on the whims of the commander and the kind of like what somebody would do to like tick somebody off, to take away any time of free time, or like if he just felt like you would have a new platoon commander. And so like my first command, like if I would have asked for it and taken advantage of it, I probably would have had the time to do that. But my second command, it was that from getting there in 2008 till when I got out of the Marine Corps, it was like, it really was a tough sell. Like, and I understand where like a lot of people's frustrations, but then on the other side of the coin, it was like when we went to Afghanistan, it paid off. So, but I would say like at least from my experience in the infantry, I don't know too many Marines in the infantry who had the time or the wherewithal to go to school, but I know that it is there.
Great. Michelle, you're next.
My name is Michelle, and I'm an active duty Army veteran. The majority of my time stateside was split between Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And I was a paralegal while I was in the military, so I did court reporting, I did Article 15s when people, soldiers would need to be punished, just discharging them, and a lot of things wrapped in with that, with retrieving witnesses from various places. And with us in the Army, there is a big push for education. They strongly encourage it. I didn't have too many problems with getting my commanders, because they would have to approve, if you wanted to take classes, and they would always sign it. I took various online classes while I was active duty, and I took them from really all different colleges. I took it from anywhere that looked like they were offering something that was interesting and outside the box, to courses that did fit into a degree pattern. The biggest thing that I noticed with when it comes to deployments with the Army, it really depended on your job, which nobody's going to know before they go in. I was fortunate enough, because of my job, I had to have a computer. You have to be able to type Article 15s, and court reporting is done on a computer. So I had the software to be able to do this sort of coursework. If you had other jobs, which could really be anything from a cook to a mechanic, jobs that are just as important, infantry, truck drivers, jobs that are more important, if you had no need for a computer, we didn't have money just to buy random computers. It just didn't exist. So we were able to, like I said, it depended on your job, and it also would depend on internet access. Earlier deployments, there just really wasn't much. You would have to type everything and try to save it on flash drives, and only once a day they'd be able to send stuff over. So there were certain correspondence courses that people tried to take as well as they could, but it's hard with being able to juggle everything. But I saw a big difference now with online classes. It just seems that my friends who are still in, who are deployed, there's always internet and cell phone access, and there's a big push now. A lot of them are being able to finish up their degrees while they're in, which is fantastic, because a lot of people can save their GI Bills for graduate school or law school or for whatever else they might want to do. So it's interesting to see how it's changing over the years.
A point I want to make, when I was a dean, we would get so many of the students coming back in after being deployed. And the thing is, if they were in the military for a number of years, they would have classes all over the place. Wherever, they got shifted around, and they would have a few credits here, a few credits here, a few credits here. And I'm going to be talking about user-friendly colleges and universities. What I found is the really user-friendly colleges and universities were the ones who would take those credits towards the degree. The problem is that I found so many of our students would come in and they wouldn't get their credits accepted. And they would go, let's say, to another school, and they found out half their classes wouldn't be accepted. Now, here's the thing. Rutgers is a regionally accredited college, well, a regionally accredited university. Any regionally accredited university, there's this kind of agreement that if there's another regionally accredited college or university, they should accept the credits. If it's a course that's close, they should accept that. But so many colleges and universities didn't. They really wanted, well, we want the students to take it at our school. And in New Jersey, they got very upset with this, especially when you look at the community colleges. They would have a student take a sociology course in a community college. When they get to a four-year school in New Jersey, they would say, oh, well, you know, we'll give you the credits for it, but we want you to take the course over. And the state of New Jersey said, this is nuts. We're paying for the course all over again. That shouldn't be. And now, going back in time, now remember, I was at Rutgers for a good part of my life, and this will show you now, I have to say, Rutgers has really done a major change from where they used to be once upon a time. But Rutgers was very stingy about accepting credits from other places. I was taking organic chemistry. Now, I was kind of in a pre-med, I was a microbiologist by training, but it was a pre-med curriculum. So when I took organic chemistry, it was a 300 level class. Okay, that means it's usually for juniors. However, I was a sophomore, and 95% of the students in that class were sophomores. Why is it a 300 level course? You know why? They didn't want to accept the credits from the community colleges. So they made it a 300 level course, even though the students taking it were really second-year students. They were really sophomores. That was the type of, and I'm pointing a finger at Rutgers because, hey, I was here, I saw it, but it was pervasive. So many schools had that attitude, and I think and you guys have to tell me on this, the thing that I saw is they come in with a ton of credits. If they're all regionally accredited, there's no reason that the school shouldn't be accepting those credits. And part of my job as dean was getting on the horn, talking to a whole bunch of other schools, finding out, excuse me, why aren't you accepting these credits exactly? And sure enough, you get in their face, you talk to their dean, and sure enough, and Rutgers has changed. But they had, that was one of the, what I see with Rutgers, especially now that they're pulling everything together, you're getting 2 medical schools coming in here. It's really, so you're getting one vision for the whole school. I think that's wonderful. Before, it was all little fiefdoms. One department would tell you they wouldn't accept your credits. Another department would say they'd accept it. And that's the thing, who does that hurt the worst? Veterans. Because they've got them from all over the place. So when we're talking about veteran-friendly schools, the schools should be taking those credits, if they're regionally accredited, and plugging them in so that they don't have to repeat all these courses. Anyhow, you're a civilian?
Yes, I'm a student here at Rutgers, I'm junior. My major is supply chain management. I originally joined the RSVO to mainly support the veterans here. Ever since I came to this country, it offered me a lot of things, and what best way to give back to support the veterans. Freshman year I met Costello, and he really showed me what a typical veteran is, and really just, there's no better way to give back to just support everybody here and just be part of this great group. Yeah.
What's your name?
Daniel,
Daniel.
sorry. My name is Daniel.
I'm Halima. I'm a senior here, and I'm not part of the group. However, coming today, I'm very happy that I did come, because this piques my interest in wanting to help and wanting to support. I was one of those people who saw a veteran in Walmart one day, and she had on her Army gear, her fatigues, and I was surprised how in awe I was with her. Like, wow. I said, you look like you just rolled over in the hay and, like just combat style. So, I definitely had to thank her. I do have family members
Just in my own life, as I said, I've got 3 biological and 3 adopted. We would see the soldiers coming back in the airports. We'd be in the airport. And I would deliberately walk the kids up to the soldiers and ask them about themselves. Are you coming back from, overseas and all the rest? And they would share. And then I made sure, because of what happened with me with Vietnam and seeing how horribly we treated the veterans, I made sure the kids learned what they were doing for our country. And I mean, really, they're putting their lives on their lines for the rest of the people. And when I was dean, that was a big thing to me. I made sure I used as much as possible to make sure they would get in and have, because on a moment's notice, how many of you guys, when you were, in class, you came back and you were starting to take classes, and then, believe it or not, there was some kind of, you got called out, you said in 2 weeks you're going to have to go on a 2-week maneuver and all the rest. And a lot of professors, they would have the attitude of, you're missing class for 2 weeks, well, I'm going to have to give you an incomplete, or I'm going to, you should drop the class and that sort of thing. But I think the message has gone out that we need to fall over backwards and really try our best. If it means giving an incomplete, you give an incomplete, and then work with them to get them back so they finish that course up. Because having them drop a class, even if you give them their money back, it's just, it delays things. There's no reason why a professor can't work with a student to get them through to the end there. That was an issue with me as dean. Have you guys seen that where, let's say, you got called up by the military at a moment's notice and you had to leave? I would get the phone call, from a student saying, I've got to go away for 2 weeks. And of course, they can't tell you what they're doing because they'd have to shoot you first, that kind of thing. But have you experienced that kind of thing?
I saw stuff like that, because I took advantage, I think, more than the family members. And for me, it wasn't, deployments are scheduled out pretty much, but it would be like going to the field. Like, if we're going to go to the field for 2 weeks, I had half and half. Half of my professors were very good, especially when you're taking online. I think they are currently getting a lot of people in the military. But I also had some that were just like, too bad, I'm sorry, no, this is when your stuff is due. We can accept, hospitalization notes, and then like the attitude of some of them, if you're gonna hand a paper in a week late, oh, I need a letter from your commander. I'm like, we're preparing to go overseas. If I go and ask for a note, like, they're gonna laugh at me. But I had a couple where, I had, especially one person in particular, I did have to go up and over to be able to get an incomplete to be able to finish the coursework. So I think more people, as word of mouth is spreading, they're gonna become more tolerable, because I would never recommend certain schools, and had been mentioned previously, Rutgers is my 7th school. I've been to a lot of different ones, some I can't even remember. And I wouldn't recommend, if I really think about it, the schools that were just not accommodating, I would never recommend them to other people, military veterans or civilians. If you just have faculty members there that aren't willing to work with anyone. Anyone can have an emergency, whether you're a veteran or not. And if you're not accommodating, we're paying. It's not a free service. We're paying to go to school, whether it's through a GI Bill or through a tuition remission, or paying out of pocket or student loans. And if people just aren't going to work with you, it's just, schools are unfortunately a dime a dozen. Just move on to the next one.
I've noticed with my students in Afghanistan, in the past 4 years, I would say, there's been a dramatic shift as far as a lot of it just depends exactly where they're deployed. Some places they're right out on the front lines there. Very tough to take online courses there. But I've noticed that they've said the big change there was, before you'd have to get online to send an email home and that sort of thing, and now it's different. They have Skype readily available, and it's where, for those of you who aren't familiar with Skype, that's almost stupid to say that, because you guys are so much better at at using technology than our generation. It's funny, the students I get, and they'll say, well, if I don't understand something, I said, ask your 12-year-old. That whole generation, they know everything about these. But it's so cool that now, and they were just saying the big differences, in the old days, it would be an email, and they'd have to line up to send an email home. Now, they can use Skype and it's readily available, and they were saying they can be there. Let's say the holiday presents, they could be there to see their kids open Christmas presents. They could be there and actually see their kids open birthday presents, things like that. And now, from a teaching point of view, as I said, I teach microbiology totally online. They'll actually have a microscope there in Afghanistan. They'll be growing up bacteria there. And they'll be looking at it with an oil immersion lens so they can actually see the bacteria. So I'm sitting at this end in New Jersey, showing them on Skype, okay, now you put the slide under there, put a little oil on it, and swing it in, and there's your oil immersion lens. And it's like they're sitting right next to you. And that's something that's, wow, they're on the other side of the world. If it's dark here, it's light there. I mean, it's just incredible how that is now. And that's just happened in the past few years. Have any of you, Michelle, you've had online courses. Did anybody else have online courses at all before that?
No, I would say, like, just like I said earlier, it's like, my time and my experience in the Marines was that my first command, I knew certain officers and certain enlisted who did, but then the second half, it was that I felt like, though, like, I saw some of the guys in the battalion and in the company that I was in go through the legwork to get it done, and it was very few and far between.
Hopefully that's changed. What really got me with this sequester business going on, they said that, they were going to pull the money for the Army and all the rest for doing all this education out in the field. And it was, wow, well, there was such a huge cry about, hey, this is why we joined the military, so that we could get an education. In my parents' generation, they came back from World War II. They were able to take a GI Bill to go to college. Well, what's nice now, you can actually start college while you're in the service. And it's everybody, there's such a revolution going on in education right now. It's like everybody's trying to get on that bandwagon. I have to say another thing with Rutgers. Rutgers was terrible with online courses as far as accepting them and transfer. It's funny, we could have our courses transferred to University of Pennsylvania, Columbia, and Cornell, Johns Hopkins, that kind of thing. Rutgers wouldn't take them. It was like, so on transcripts, you'll notice that it just shows the course. It doesn't say how you got the course. And I would tell the students, it was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell policy. Well, what's good? Rutgers has changed. Now they're getting into the online business big time. And I think that's a very positive thing, because this way, no matter where you are, you can get courses. But here's the thing, not everybody is meant or cut out for it. If you could address this, online courses. Some people really love the online courses. It's a great way to go, it's a great way to learn. Not everybody can learn that way. Comment.
I have a kind of a comment on that. I'm a Marine myself. And when I was in the Marine Corps, like these Marines over here said, it's kind of dependent upon the command. But I was fortunate enough, because I was an aviation electrician, that my job was more like an 8 to 5 job, where you went in, you did your job, and you left. And I was fortunate enough in my last year in the Marine Corps to actually be taking online courses. But the one thing that isn't actually, really nobody's addressed, is the transfer of your military credits into colleges. I went to school for a year to train for my job in the Marine Corps. And I mean, the common theme there is a lot of Marines ask, especially being in the airfield, or in the Air Wing, that, well, my college accepts it. So that's another thing too, that's also a deterring factor about colleges too.
We all get what's called like an arts transcript, and they take any training you did, physical training, military, like for me, I have like legal writing, etc., and they fill it into how it would fit in a course curriculum. And some of the elective credits, like physical training, I should have had 6 credits, but they give you this whole transcript, and I have like 32, it's updated every year, like 32 credits, and a lot of colleges are very willing to take those credits and plug them in, even if you just get electives out of them. Troy University said, we will give you a minor of military science, you have to take not one class, because we'll credit it. Rutgers will not take, Rutgers Newark, at this time, will not take 1 credit that you earned through military training.
I honestly feel that they're going to be changing on that because this revolution is going on. There's a brand new thing going on out there. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's called MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses. And it's done by all the best schools in the country. They're Ivy Leagues, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. They all have these. And what they're doing is they're putting 10,000 students in a course. You figure out, how can they possibly do that? But they're taught by their very best professors. And the trouble is, it's like, now they're not giving you credit for it. But what they are doing, and now what's really cool, Rutgers has signed up for this. So I'm hoping Rutgers gets on this bandwagon with the rest of the best schools in the country on this. But what they do is you can take the course free of charge, the finest professors in the land. And not everybody makes it through the end. And you get this little certificate at the end, but there's certain colleges saying, if you take this exam, at the end, if you pass it, we'll give you college credit for it. But what I have is my own students, I'll say, if you're not, let's say, if you want to take a subject, you really don't have a background in it, take these free, massive, open, online courses, and it gives you dynamite background, costs you nothing, and then take the course out of Rutgers or wherever, and you're going to be really ready to jump right on that course and do very well. There's courses, for example, that, you know, if you're going into nursing, let's say, anatomy and physiology, those are killer courses for nursing. In the sciences, organic chemistry was the killer course for pre-med. Biochemistry at a graduate level. Well, these things you can take now at, as I say, at Berkeley, and it's costs you nothing, and it's not, you know what I do is, if you have courses you're taking out, take the course. They've got a lot of cool things. So you're doing a term paper or something, they got some great ideas there. Just pull it right in, and it's free, and it's right on the internet. So that's a whole revolution going on there. That's another day's conversation there. But I think a big thing, the question I had here is, what makes a college or university military or veteran friendly? What do you see as one of the things there that really makes the difference between, you know, someone paying lip service and somebody actually going out there and trying to make a difference?
Yeah, I can answer that question. I want to hear from the audience a little bit. It kind of plays into that question too, because I heard a few minutes ago you mentioned the term bend over backward. You know, the colleges and universities bend over backwards for veterans. And I'm on the fence about that. I have mixed feelings about it. I want to hear from everybody in the audience, because I think everybody's mostly veterans. So should colleges bend over backwards? Does that make you feel like you're being put in a special place that makes you feel uncomfortable, and that affects your transition back into society, where you just kind of want to fit in and be normal? Do you think colleges should bend over backwards, or should they just treat you like anybody else? Now, obviously, when it comes to deployments, if you're a reservist, that's different. Colleges need to recognize you have obligations to your military service, and that should come before your education, if that's the choice you make. But I want somebody to give me their opinion. Do you think bending over backwards, is that a good thing, a bad thing? Are you indifferent? Is it depending on the situation? Whatever.
Not so much bend over backwards, but have a good support system in place. For instance, myself, I EAS in November of 2011, at the end of the month, by January I was starting here, moving here and everything. So the school as a whole had a good transition system and assistance and everything. Like Marie is like a godsend.
Yeah.
She's easily made my life in Chevrolet exponentially much easier than it could have been. I'm sure everybody's heard horror stories about other schools and their VA
to take it as an elective, but yet, if you're a regular college student, if you take a class multiple times and you just keep failing it, they will work with you and try to see what they can pull from other areas and try to be more accommodating. So I think that it would be better, like with the number of credits you can transfer in, like, oh, we don't want to take more than this amount, or we don't want to take, for your major department, you have to complete half of them here. Well, maybe if we're a little over, if I could have gone to just one school and graduated, I would, but I got restationed somewhere else. I couldn't continue at that school because I didn't live there. And certain things like that, like depending on the circumstances, it's helpful, but, not to take advantage of or anything. And I don't want to be cheapened as well. We don't want our degrees to look like, oh, of course you got a degree, you don't probably even do anything. I don't want to go that way, but I do certain circumstances can't be avoided, and more accommodating, like you said, that would be helpful.
Yeah, with accommodating, that's a much better term. Let me give you some examples that I've been through. And it's, somebody mentioned about, having to fill out paperwork and all the rest of this to, there being, whatever, what do you call it when somebody goes away for 2 weeks and they're in the guard or that sort of thing?
They'll just be activated for whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I would do, both as dean and as a professor, I would take their word for it. If they tell me that's what they're doing, they're in the military, I'm sorry, they are putting their life on the line for me. I think the least I can do is trust them if they're telling me and not play a paper game with them. Another example of this, and this, keep it in the room, but professors have tremendous leeway. Don't be afraid to talk to your professors if there's a problem come up. And now some of them, they no wiggle room at all. But others, they'll work with you and ask them, and you don't be afraid to do that. And okay, if you get disappointed, you get disappointed. But let me tell you, the vast majority of them there will try to help you. Just an example here. There was a woman, husband and wife were in the military. Her husband got killed. She had 2 weeks left of a 15-week course. As far as I was concerned, everything she did was gold up to that point. And then her whole life basically fell apart. Some professors would basically say, I'm sorry, she didn't complete it, da-da-da-da-da. I'll give her an incomplete. That's a nice way out, actually. But others would be, well, they can do the work, we're not, I'm going to, I'll give them a D, that kind of thing. But what I did is I looked at the work they did, the high quality of the work, and realized, man, it was just, now, deans have magic wands. If you have a special need, don't be afraid to go to a dean, because their purpose in life, you have rules and regulations. But when there's a special circumstance, it's almost like a judge. So if there's a special circumstance that needs, an out-of-the-box decision, go see a dean about it, and sure enough, that can really help. And I think those things make a difference. When you get someone who is so stuck on, New Jersey City University, okay, I'll pick on them for a minute. I was an assistant dean at the time, had this one professor that demanded that they be in that door for the class 5 o'clock. They locked the door and wouldn't let somebody in at 5:01. So they were giving a test. He locked the students out of the class that came after 5 o'clock. They have this bridge in Jersey City, and occasionally a tugboat comes along and they lift it up, and you're stuck there for a good 20 minutes until that bridge comes down. And that sort of thing, he wouldn't budge for that. But I'll tell you this much, on his paperwork, when it was late, I was able to say thanks in a very special way as the assistant dean to, hey, you can't do this for our students. So don't be afraid to get in the professor's face or dean's face and let them know your special needs. And I mean, not everybody's like that. And I'd say that nicely that the vast majority of professors will be accommodating. And they need to be, especially let them know you're better and your special needs. I got one question here. And this would be more online courses, but I just want to throw it out there. What's the optimum number of weeks for a class for those in the service? A number of schools are like shortening semesters, 8, 10, 15. The standard semester in most places is 15, but a lot of schools now are converting to 8-week semesters. The advantage of an 8-week semester is it starts, you can, if you stagger them, every month you can have a different class start. And let's say if you know that you're going to be deployed in 2.5 months, you can get in and take that 8-week course and still make it and be deployed, what have you. By 15 weeks, it's tough. So anyhow, I want to throw what your feelings are about varying the lengths of semesters. So it's not just a fall semester, a spring semester. Yes?
When I was in New Arizona, they did a really cool thing there. They actually had the community college there. It was called Arizona Western Community College, I believe. But they had them on base, and they had representatives that helped out the veterans, or not veterans, but the active duty military, and even the spouses. And they consolidated everything to 8 weeks, and they worked with them, and they were very accommodating that way. I think 8 weeks is a lot better than a 15-week course, because, yeah, maybe you last minute find out you're going to be stuck on deployment, because we actually had an instance where a Marine actually shot himself in the foot to get out of deployment, and somebody else ended up going in his place. So, I mean, that was literally 2 days before we were deployed that somebody else got stuck on that deployment. So, I mean, I think an 8-week course deal is a lot better, because I took an online class and an actual class that was after hours, after I got done with my job. I would go and do that on campus, but I think it's a lot better for 8 weeks, just because you can only take like 2 classes at a time, so it helps you get more credits faster.
Any other thoughts on that?
I agree. I've taken both. When I was active duty, I only took those tri-terms that were only like 8 weeks. And I noticed when I first came back to New Jersey, I did take a quick term at a community college that was only 11 weeks. I mean, in my experiences, it wasn't less work. You were just doing it over a shorter period of time. You were still covering the same amount of chapters, just at a more expedited rate. And I thought that was great, because not only, then I could, instead of taking, 4 classes, say, at a time, full-time, I could take 2 and 2. And it's easier to focus, especially when you're taking very complicated level classes. It's easier to be able to focus. And online, as far as face-to-face, the only ones I've taken that were shorter were online. So I'm not too sure how face-to-face, but we do that in the summer, and you just need longer times. And I think I do great in my summer classes. I've never gotten less than a day, because you're focusing on only online classroom work for me. So I'm curious to see what this is going to be like in comparison to, because I know Rutgers did drag their feet a lot about online classes, because they were in the newspaper a couple months ago about, we're going to open up, classes and online. So I'm curious to see, the difference and how they match up, because I thought online classes, I mean, I've had good faculty and not so good, but I thought they were generally harder. I mean, I think I do. I'm also very vocal in classes, sit in front, class participation, I do office hours. I find this so much easier than taking online classes, where you have to, a lot of it is teaching yourself. Sure, I could read a book, but taking math and science, if you don't have prior knowledge, I mean, you're teaching yourself. So, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the transition for Rutgers.
Any other comments on that?
Alex, when you completed your degree, I know you completed it while you were active duty, did you take online, or did you just use like the post-physical campuses?
No, I just did it in between after ones.
So while you were stateside?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask the civilians on the panel about the whole bend over backwards versus the accommodating thing. Like if you hear about, veterans not necessarily getting special treatment, but, how do you feel veterans should be treated in the university as far as, should they just be like everybody else, or should there be a little bit extra accommodation?
I think the accommodation would be helpful. If I was employed in another country, I'd really like the extra help, at least getting used to things. I mean, even just coming as a freshman, I feel like sometimes you need help, some accommodation. So imagine if you're, come from a war, I think not bend over backwards, to an extent that I can go, many different ways, but yeah, I really do think the accommodation part would really be helpful.
It doesn't upset you that
No,
veterans
no,
are getting some kind of preferential treatment.
I think they, if you go, if you served in the military, I think you can have those. You're okay. I'm not really gonna be like,
Just to get a civilian's perspective.
yeah, I'm not gonna really, go into the meeting and say, hey, look, you're getting this permission,
Yeah.
So, that's fine.
fact that you have to fight for your credits, and they won't take this, and this should have been a lab, and this one wants to change it from a 200 level course or 300 to, 2 to 3, just so, I mean, it's a first. I mean, without you guys, where would we be? I think in that manner, absolutely bend over backwards. I say bend over backwards and not accommodate, because what you guys do is just like, wow, like seriously. And you need that backup. How are you not going to back? Like, really? Like, it's disgusts me. Like, really, it just totally saddens me that you all struggle and go through that. And a lot of people, when they enter the services, they do have the idea that I'm going to school. I'm going to use the GI Bill. I'm going to further my education. And then when you try to, you get all these roadblocks in your way, which is, I mean, you guys, you've been through enough. It just reminds me of the veterans on the street, or, you know, the ones that you know are not getting appropriate services. It just disgusts me. How dare they?
I kind of disagree with you guys. I think if a university decides to bend over backwards, there's consequences behind it. One of the biggest consequences, I believe, is an employer might not think highly of a veteran. They might not want to hire a veteran because they probably figure, oh, he got his degree in the easy way. He doesn't have the same knowledge a regular student would have.
Was it to an
Well, I don't
extent?
mean it in that respect. Like,
And I think that actually happens for a lot of veterans. I think they get passed over jobs that they actually qualify because they believe that the professors were a lot easier than them.
Was it to an extent? Like, for example, credits. I'm sure if you did in some what kind of program within the military, at least they should accommodate you in order for those credits to transfer. Those sort of ways, not so much special treatment and getting an easy A in your class. No, if you're going to take a class with me, you're going to work as hard as I do. But credit transferring, things like that, I think you should be a little more lenient towards that.
especially with Gen Eds. I mean, give me a break.
I don't think
you
you're
guys
supposed to.
kind of like, what were you, an aviation engineer? Oh, electrician. I mean, if you put me in front of that, I would be like, you guys go far and beyond. So that should definitely account for something. I know your professor doesn't know how to do what you do. So, I mean, give me a break. To that respect, I don't mean to where the degree is seen as less than. But with credits and you guys are working and busting, your humps and getting out there and doing all that you do, absolutely, take my credits. Yeah, that's just my feeling.
Has anyone, even like in the audience, has anybody ever had something like that where people say, oh, you're a student veteran, it's easy for you? I've never encountered that personally. Has anybody?
No.
Hey, you
I haven't encountered that, but I think Rosella makes a good point.
No, that's why I was asking.
If there could be a time where you can go too far and you put veterans in a place where they're just not necessarily like, catered to, but maybe not maybe given like easy A in certain classes. But I know what you're saying. That's not good either. Being overly sensitive towards veterans could be just as bad as being not sensitive enough. So I think that's the point, right? I mean,
That's correct.
there should be like everything else, a happy medium, a balance between, accommodation, but not necessarily being overly sensitive and making, like you say, employers look at veterans like they just kind of coasted through school because the school was, too accommodating, and that's not a good thing either. You want to get jobs and leave here, so I agree with you that,
Having also worked in industry, what I used to do is if I would have someone who came out of the military, I would think highly of hiring them. That was a big plus if they told me that, they were in the Army, they were Marine, that sort of thing. In class, and I hate making generalizations, but they're usually a more mature student. As far as getting things in on time and all the rest, hey, it's not my military students who are the ones that are late getting things in. They're used to schedules where, so I find them a very mature student, and they are a little bit older than I'd say the rest of the students in the class. And there's a certain respect that goes with that, a certain maturity. And as I said, I was a director of microbiology at Roche and a vice president for a biotech company. If I saw that somebody had that military training, that was always a plus in my book, because that was, you're really talking about discipline, that a lot of people, let me tell you, especially my kids, they're coming out on the other side really well, let me tell you. But as far as discipline goes, I was also a Boy Scout leader for 10 years. And it's funny, some of my wildest Boy Scouts, all of a sudden they went into the military, boy, did that straighten them out. And I mean, you hear that story all the time, but that was my perspective on that.
We're actually, we have to close up now.
Yeah, one last thing. New York Times basically came out with a really nice article. And they were looking at all the various things that help veterans stay in school, higher education. And what they found was, the experts say is critical to creating camaraderie of the small unit culture in the military. That's important to recreate that on campus. I just want your opinion on that as far as the small groups that are a group of veterans, kind of like your own support group, that's critical to the success of veterans on campus. Just like everybody's perspective on it. Yes?
I fully agree with that. I mean, we live in Colorado. I've never been up here before. I just moved out here last year. I have no friends, I have no family up here, and I think that, this is why I'm trying to force myself to get more involved. Because I just moved out here and really haven't time to try to get involved, but I want to push myself to get involved with all these other veterans because I don't have those people to talk to out here. I don't have those military personnel that I know, or any family or friends to talk to. And I think it's a really strong point that colleges kind of create that for the veterans in their veterans programs. So they get them together so they can help one another out and do that, because there's transition issues. It doesn't matter whether you went to war or whether you didn't go to war. If you were in the military and you got out and say you moved across the United States because you wanted to go to that college, you're going to have a lot of transition issues because you're not going to go to the desert. You're not going to go to the area where you need that support.
Yeah, that's one of the things we try to do here with our veterans group is create that, community of veterans on campus, and that's really what our main goal is. And I just want to get an idea who's going to be here in the fall. Raise your hand. I just need to get it. Lou, you're not. You're out of here. So pretty much everybody. Because we need everybody's help to make the student veterans group strong and vibrant on campus. Because there are, despite what you might think is like over 300 veterans on campus here. So
may not every student veteran who declares that they're a veteran is automatically enrolled in the group. Attendance at the meeting is in only people we know. We know what everybody said, but rare people get emails about this. We don't want you to miss anything that's available to you. We got something for education benefits, medical, health issues, like that. Communication is out there.
yeah, and I don't want to
The
steal.
core group that creates the camaraderie and
Right.
just hope to stimulate and grow through that camaraderie.
Right, and I don't want to steal Michelle's thunder. I don't know if you're going to make an announcement, or you're probably making an email, but we're going to need, all new officers for next fall. So whoever's in this room, I know I see you a lot, and you're either active with the group or you want to get active, like you said.
We're going to have elections.
We're going to have I don't know when you're going to decide, but so think about that because you can be a very important person on campus. You can
Right
be a
before
campus.
finals start, so that's going to be coming up soon. But I know a lot of people's classes. Then, thank you everybody for coming.